You're listening to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health.
It only takes one step, twist, or crunch to know something doesn't feel right. Essentia Health's orthopedic and sports medicine team gets you back to doing what you love with commitment, resilience, intention. We're here to keep you moving forward. Visit essentiahealth.org to learn more about orthopedics and sports medicine, like nowhere else.
Hello and welcome to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health. I'm your host, Matt Wellens, the Bulldogs hockey beat reporter at the Duluth News Tribune.
And I'm Zach Schneider, the television voice of UMD Hockey on My Nine Sports.
So back in late November, we had Connor McMenamin on the podcast. He's a former Penn State captain turned Bulldogs captain. That's episode 9 if you want to go back and catch that one. Our original plan for that episode was to have another former Nittany Lion turned Bulldog on with Connor, but schedules did not align. She's on campus a lot more than Connor admitted to being on the podcast. Again, go back and listen to episode 9 if you haven't. But we're happy to have her on this week for what I'm calling part 2 of Nittany Lions-turned-Bulldogs. Welcome to the podcast, Olivia Wallin.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So I have it written down here. We were talking a little bit about this when you got to our office here. You're from Oakville, Ontario, right?
Yeah.
And that's like between Toronto and Hamilton on Lake Ontario there?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Somewhat know my Ontario geography. We deal with more Western Canadians on here than the Eastern Canadians. Tell us about Oakville and where you grew up.
Yeah, so where I grew up is somewhere really nice, suburb area. I actually grew up my first 10 years in Ottawa.
Okay.
And then moved to Oakville for my dad's job. And from there, played for the Oakville Hornets, played in Stony Creek, and then played my last year in Etobicoke, and then obviously went to Penn State, and now I'm here.
I'm really glad you pronounced that right now. It's the coolest team name because can you say it again?
Etobicoke.
Etobicoke.
Yeah.
Etobicoke. Like I've wanted to learn how to say that because the Etobicoke Dolphins.
That's right.
That's like the coolest hockey team name. You don't see many Dolphins in hockey.
No, you don't. We were definitely feisty Dolphins, though.
Feisty Dolphins.
Yeah.
Why are they called the Dolphins? Where does that nickname come from?
I have no idea.
Because I'm not like a huge marine biologist or anything, but not a lot of dolphins in Lake Ontario, right?
None, to be exact.
Okay, all right. So take us through your original kind of college hockey jersey from Penn State, how you ended up there, and then going in the transfer portal and coming here to UMD.
Yeah, so obviously before college, I knew I wanted to go somewhere where I would play right away. And unfortunately, my skating wasn't as good as it is now. So I kind of visited Penn State. I visited a few other schools. Really loved Penn State when I stepped on campus. Felt like home. Obviously, they have unreal facilities and unreal coaching staffs and stuff. And then when I got there, I think we were ranked 30th in the league, and we got up to 10 nationally, so that was pretty cool to be a part of. And then after my third year, the team wasn't going to look so strong the next year, so me and my roommate Kiara Zanin transferred. She transferred to Ohio. I transferred here, but during my transferring time, I talked to Connor McMenamin, and I was like, where are you going kind of thing? Like, what are you thinking? And he was like, I'm going to Duluth. Like, I love it. It's my dream school. Like, you should too. And I was like, I was basically sold from there. Talked to the coaches, love the coaches from here. So, yeah.
Did you know Connor? I mean, obviously just playing in the same program, men's and women's, for a couple years there, but did you know him, or was he just somebody that was in the portal and you kind of went to him for advice?
No, I think we were pretty good friends for about 2 years when I was there. Obviously, my freshman year, we weren't too good of friends, but when our team started hanging out, like, we naturally gravitated to each other, and we became pretty good friends.
So in the portal, and your experience might be different from others, but it seems like in most cases it's the team that reaches out first to the player. Once you go in the portal, then the team kind of looks and says, oh, we're interested in this group of players, and the recruitment is on from there. But for you, were you the first one to make contact with UMD and say, hey, hey, if you want me or if you're interested, I'm kind of interested in coming to Duluth?
No, they actually made contact first, which was unexpected for me. I didn't think that school would be interested in me, but I'm so glad that they did, and I'm so happy to be here now.
So he tells you should come to Duluth, and then the phone call comes then, so the stars kind of aligned in that sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, interesting.
How many options did you have when your name hit the transfer portal?
I had a lot of options right away. I shut down a few schools. Obviously, I knew I didn't want to play in the CHA again. Didn't want to go to an Ivy. So schools like QPAC, Vermont, Clarkson, UMD, schools like that were interested. So, yeah. And
you have the added wrinkle of you're a civil engineering major. That's what you were at Penn State, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine. We've talked about engineering majors on this podcast before. I call that one of the smart majors. It's a difficult major. It's a unique program. Like, did that factor into kind of like schools that you had to look at as well? You obviously had to try and find the right match, a school that could aid credits and everything would transfer and just had the civil engineering, right?
Yeah. I actually had to take 4 summer classes this summer to be eligible this year. So the transfer credits were a problem. But yeah, for programs that didn't have civil engineering, I couldn't go there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You've done 3 years of a civil engineering program. You're not all of a sudden going to stop and switch majors at that point. So it was a bit of a challenge for you transferring credits and everything over, huh?
Yeah, it was definitely a long summer of classes, but I'm super glad it all worked out and I get to play this year.
Was that a consideration that you hadn't graduated from undergrad? Because most of the transfers, I think there's a few, like Luke Bass on the men's side, Matthew Thiessen came in as an undergrad before he had reached his 5th year. But was that a consideration that maybe it might be better just to stay here and finish out school and not have to go through everything? Or were you pretty set after your junior season that you wanted to go somewhere else?
No, it was actually pretty challenging when you're an undergraduate to try to change programs because you can be under the transfer credit limit, which means you can't play until you get those up. So I kind of transferred at the perfect time where it was kind of like I need enough credits to graduate from UMD from the school, but I also had enough credits to transfer over. So it's like it was that perfect sweet spot for me.
Okay, explain. I don't think we've ever talked about that or looked into that aspect of the transfer portal. So what you're saying is you got to have so many credits to transfer. Okay.
But you have to get a certain amount of credits from UMD to be able to graduate from that program as well.
Okay. The NCAA wants to make sure if you're transferring to UMD, it's not just to play hockey, but it's also that you're going to be able to finish your degree when you transfer there. Okay.
Yes.
And that's why you had to take the summer courses.
Yeah.
So are you still on a 4-year plan or are you able to be on a 5-year?
No, I'm on a 5-year plan right now. So how it works is I learned a lot about this over the summer. So by your 3rd year, you have to be done 60% of your program. By your 4th year, 80%. And then they kind of just let you go after that.
Okay. So you're planning to play not just this year, but next year at UMD as well, huh?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, you have no choice, I suppose.
I need the degree.
You needed the degree. Not the first women's hockey player that's come on this podcast this year and said, yep, I'm coming back for my 5th year because I'm still working on my degree, which is great. I mean, that's a bonus. Otherwise, the way you're kind of telling it is you might not have been able to transfer if you didn't have what's basically the 5th COVID year, right?
Yeah, if I took my 4th year at Penn State, I think I would have been stuck there for a 5th to try to finish a degree. So,
what has the transition been like for you going from, we asked Connor about this, a big school like Penn State. I got to go there for the Women's Frozen Four. That was a blast, even though there's some COVID restrictions and stuff in place. But that's a pretty big school. It's a Big Ten school, a big state school. Instead coming to UMD, which compared to Penn State is obviously a smaller school. That's mostly D2 athletics. What's that transition been like for you?
It's been good overall, but I will say when I first got here, a bit of culture shock. I was like, UMD's pretty small, like smaller than Penn State, but the buildings are more confusing. I will say that. They are all connected. I have no idea where I'm going. I have my route to the civil engineering building and back home. That's it. But overall, it's been super great. Everyone's super nice and super welcoming, so I'm really happy.
I think you got a leg up on Connor, though. He might not even know where the bookstore is at this
He probably doesn't.
Yeah, he was pretty honest about it. A lot of his classes are online and he doesn't have to go to campus a lot, but you've been on campus a lot. What have you noticed? I think he was telling us about Penn State being such a college town and that it's really just the college and that's it. And so when students go away on break or on summer, then that town kind of fizzles out. But UMD, obviously a little bit different in Duluth, where there's a lot more working professionals. There's a lot else going on in the city. How has that been for you to go from such like a college-based town to UMD in the Duluth area?
Yeah, I love it. I feel like here the community rallies around the women's team a lot more than they do at Penn State, just because there's more people around and more things going on. I love that we're right in a city, so I get to do more city things that we didn't have back at Penn State, which is great. And yeah, it's just been a blast so far. Yeah,
it is. When you're in State College there, it's basically the campus just surrounds everything. What always jumps out to me about when we the UMD men were at Cornell recently, and I'm like, wow, you to walk across this campus would take forever. I'd be late to class every day or something like that. But you were saying UMD, it's just like a maze trying to get through the tunnels.
Yeah, all these underground tunnels. I still don't know where I'm going.
Yeah, and it's been a mild winter here so far. So last winter, you'd understand why we got all those underground tunnels and stuff like that. The hockey programs. Penn State's a Big Ten school, but its hockey program doesn't compete in the Big Ten. There's no Big Ten women's hockey. I still to this day find it odd that their hockey program doesn't compete with the rest of the other Big Ten schools in the WCHA. How do the hockey programs compare Penn State to UMD? Is Penn State, is that women's hockey program, even though they're not competing in the WCHA or a Big Ten players, were you guys treated like Big Ten athletes like everyone else? How did it compare? How does it compare to UMD, which I think tries as hard as it can to be right up there with the Minnesotas and Wisconsins and Ohio States as much as a school like UMD can? No,
I think both schools provide great resources for both hockey programs. Very similar resources, like training rooms the same, hot tub, cold tub, nice dressing room in both arenas. Both arenas are fantastic. So I would say UMD's done a really good job competing with those Big Ten schools.
What about on the ice? Connor was telling us about the differences between playing in the Big Ten to playing now in the NCHC. What's your experience like going from the CHA now to the WCHA?
Well, I will say that I feel like if I were recruited to UMD as a freshman, I definitely would have sat on the bench the first few years. So going to Penn State just allowed me to develop a lot more and play in that league. I would say the WCHA is the best league in college hockey. So coming here, it's a lot faster, a lot stronger, a lot more physical. You work for everything you have here. More skill in the league. And I feel like the CHA is more like just physicality kind of thing.
Even for transfers, even though you're older than what a true freshman would be and you've got more experience playing college hockey, there's still an adaptation period, we think, from the outside looking in.
Oh, for sure.
Do you feel like you're past that and now you're just in the WCHA, or is there still a little bit more of a learning curve for you as this season goes on into the second half?
When I first got here, I was definitely learning. Probably the same boat as a freshman, learning the style of play, learning how to be physical, stuff like that. But now I feel like I've adjusted pretty well. So I'm happy where I'm at now, and I hope I can just keep going in the right direction.
Your freshman year at Penn State was we call it the COVID season, right? Of 2021. That was Penn State. There was a lot of people arguing that Penn State should have been in the NCAA tournament that year. They didn't win you guys didn't win College Hockey America tournament. We're still, I think, was that the season you guys were ranked maybe 10th in the country or up there, and you get left out. UMD gets in, Minnesota gets left out. Providence got put in and didn't fare very well in the tournament that year. For you guys at Penn State, how tough was that? And I'm wondering if you ever thought, man, if we competed maybe in a tougher league than the CHA, maybe we would be getting into the NCAA tournament. Because it seems like Penn State's been on that bubble. every year, and then you just get that hiccup in conference tournaments are tough. The one and dones, you just never know what's going to happen. Like, I'm wondering your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I do think the CHA is perceived as a weaker league than all the rest of the leagues, definitely. I remember just sitting there watching the bidding go on and getting left out, and we were all pretty heartbroken. Obviously, I would have loved to play in the tournament. We would have all loved to play tournament. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is, and I hope if a team gets in, they do well or at least put up a fight. So I know we would have, but we would have loved to be there too.
Yeah.
You've had two experiences now in your programs. You've had the program that's trying to break through, that's trying to get noticed among some of those upper echelon teams, and now at UMD, a program that is recognized nationwide as one of the best in the country. Which is harder, trying to get into the tournament or trying to stay at the top of the hill like you are at UMD, trying to stay relevant as one of those top 3, 4, 5 teams in the country?
Yeah, I think definitely trying to stay there. Just added pressure. You're kind of not the underdog anymore. You're the team that's expected to be there every year. So trying to live up to that is pretty tough. But I know this year we have a pretty good team, so we're trying to do that, and I'm pretty confident that we will.
Do you enjoy being the hunted, whereas you were the hunter for your first 3 years at Penn State? You like having the target on your back?
I love it. I love going into games being like, oh, we better beat them or they're going to be celebrating on the other side. But I just love the competition and I love the added pressure on. And to be able to win versus those teams is that much sweeter.
I imagine at Penn State, you guys were the hunted too. Like, there's a lot
hunted in the league, but
hunted in the league, right? Like, there's a lot of smaller schools in that league, and then there's big Penn State, the Big Ten school.
No, for sure.
The bully of the CHA.
The bully of the CHA. You guys do so well in the regular season and have had a lot of success. Though Syracuse is also there. That's another bigger school, but it's still like Big Ten schools are on another level. Do you think Penn State could be a competitive program and do well in the WCHA if it made that jump and joined the rest of its, Big Ten schools in this league?
For sure. I always thought that, the Michigan team should get a women's team, the Notre Dame should get a women's team, make that conference just on the women's side. But I feel like, yes, they would definitely attract more kids if they were in the WCHA because, again, it's a great school. It's got that Big Ten atmosphere. It's got the football. So, yeah, I do think that they would be competitive if they did come into a Big Ten team.
Yeah, one of the great mysteries in all of college hockey is why there are no Division I women's hockey programs in the state of Michigan. Because there's a lot of talent in Ontario.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of you would be looking at going to a Michigan
sure.
school if they had a program, right?
Yeah, I remember my dad brought me up to a Michigan State game once, and we toured the school, and he was like, if there was a hockey program, you'd be going here. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, the question I would have had if I were you were like, okay, so where's the women's hockey team? And it's like, well, there isn't one. Huge mystery, huge missed opportunity for the state of Michigan, where I used to live in. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more with Olivia. You're listening to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health.
Greetings from Northlandia, a place to bring your curiosity, because here you will find curiosities. Whether it's a look inside the Northern Rail Train Car Inn or an introduction to Duluth's musical roboticist, Robot Rickshaw, we celebrate the region's distinctive people, places, and history. Each week, I'm joined by my fellow reporters who share the unique and fascinating stories that they discover while exploring the Northland. You can find new episodes of the Northlandia podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Join us along this journey and discover the extraordinary stories that you just might miss if you're not in the right place at the right time, ready to step off the beaten path with no rush to return, here in Northlandia.
Hi, I'm Maria Lockwood, a reporter with the Superior Telegram. Explore Superior and Douglas County history with me on Archive Dive, a monthly podcast available at superiortelegram.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome back to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. They're proud to be the team physicians for the UMD Bulldogs and provide sports medicine care to more than 25,000 student athletes in the community to ensure they can compete at the highest level while protecting their long-term health and athletic futures. Thanks to Essentia Health for their support of the Bulldog Insider Podcast. I'm Matt Wellens, along with my co-host, Zach Schneider, and our guest this week, Olivia Wallin. Liv, we got some kind of quick hits here to close this out. We're talking about the Penn State campus. What's one thing you would like to bring back from the Penn State campus to UMD?
It was this place called Irving's, a bagel place. I loved it. Should be here.
Duluth does not have a good bagel place.
I know, I've been looking for one.
Huge knock against
Big Apple Bagels isn't superior, but it's not bad. I don't know how it compares. But
I've been there.
I like Big Apple. I haven't been to Irving's. So how does it compare?
Irving's is definitely better.
What's different? What's better about it?
I would just say that the eggs are fresher, or
It's not a chain bagel place.
the bagels are homemade. It's pretty unreal.
Yeah, it's like in Oxford, they got bagel at Miami University. I was just there with the men. They got bagel in Delhi. Northern Michigan, where I went, 3rd Street Bagel was a great bagel and coffee shop. Yeah, we need a really good bagel shop here in Duluth. I'm with you on that one. Okay, so that's one thing. Is that Irving's? Is that on the Penn State campus? Because my next question was like, what would you bring from State College to Duluth? So the answer to that question would be Irving's. But anything specifically from like that Penn State campus or like Pagula Ice Arena?
Yeah, maybe a charter flight once in a while.
Charter flight.
That would be nice.
Which you guys like. We talked to Connor a little bit about this. You need charter flights to get out of State College, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're driving 3 hours or something like that.
Oh, bus rides for our team were at least 4 hours. When we were driving to Boston, it'd be a 9-hour bus ride.
Yeah, so what was travel like for you? We never got into that with the CHA. Everyone makes a big deal out east. They're like, oh man, the WCHA, the travel out there. And it's really not that bad because you have a bunch of Minnesota schools right on top of each other. But for the CHA, I mean, that league.
That's travel.
That's travel.
I would say here is no travel. A 2-hour bus ride, I could do all day. But over there, I was doing 6-hour, 7-hour, 9-hour bus rides.
What was the longest trip?
To New Hampshire, 9 hours.
9 hours to New Hampshire, and you bust that one, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's about the men's team will like bust to Omaha, which is 8 hours. And I think that's their limit.
Well, and we were talking about this before we went on the air, but when you bust 9 hours and you got a Friday, Saturday series saying you're going to leave on Wednesday for a civil engineering major, that means you're not in class from Wednesday until the following Monday. So we overlook that too when we talk about a 9-hour bus ride, but that's tough, right?
Oh, it's so tough. You got to get your homework done on that Monday or Tuesday. And usually the teachers don't really give you a grace period. So you get her done or you don't.
Where'd you get the charter flights that you got every once? Where were those trips to?
We took one to Ohio.
Okay.
For the national tournament.
For the national tournament. Okay.
Yeah.
What was your favorite road trip out east? Was there one that you looked forward to every year?
Hampshire.
Wasn't New Hampshire, obviously.
None. No. Yeah, probably none. I'm not a big bus rider. I take gravel, which is anti-sickness medicine, and just put myself to sleep on bus rides. So no bus rides for me.
You do not miss any of the travel.
No, I don't.
What was the closest bus ride for Penn State?
About 4.5 hours.
4.5 hours. All right. So the WCHA, you transferred for travel reasons.
Clearly I
did.
That's
exactly like, if you just said that, like, why are you transferring? I can't do 4 9-hour bus rides anymore.
Right. Do you have a trip in the WCHA that you've either already taken or are looking forward to in the second half?
No, I'm looking forward to the Minnesota ones because those are close. The Wisconsin one was 5.5, which is a little bit long, but not as bad as I usually have. So I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, you're looking forward to the home portion of your second half of the season?
Yeah, playing at home is better.
We talked to Luke Bass and Reese Hunt early on this season. They both got to face their former team this season. Penn State's not on the regular season schedule for the Bulldogs. Would you want to play your favorite team your former team in the postseason? What would that be like for you?
Probably not. I'd rather just not. Obviously, I have friends on that team, so we'd be ultra competitive, but I'm okay with not playing them.
You're fine not seeing Penn State at all this year or next year.
Yeah.
Which league has better referees?
both leagues are are pretty questionable.
Are challenging.
Yeah.
I will say in the NCAA tournament, I think it's been an advantage for UMD when they've gotten College Hockey America referees. Do they both kind of, I feel like when you look at the spectrum of calling games super tight, I think the ECAC's on one end. They're really tight, not a lot of physicality. WCHA, everyone says, is like the wild, wild west and basically men's hockey and stuff like that if you hear it from the out east. I remember being in State College and some of the Eastern women's hockey reporters are sitting up there going, wow, I can't, in the national championship game, UMD and Ohio State, they're like, they're letting these two teams murder each other. I can't believe it. And Nicole Haase and I are sitting next to each other. She covers the WCHA and we're like, we haven't seen a penalty yet in here. And we're trying to figure out if we were just numbed by the WCHA that we no longer know, like, consider anything a penalty. Like, how do the two leagues officials compare? Is one more physical than the other? Or
I would say the WCHA is more physical.
Okay.
Like, there's some people that get hit but from behind and there's no call, and I'm like, okay, guess we're hitting today. And then also my freshman year, I got called for a dive penalty in the CHA, which I don't dive. So
that was the end of it with those officials there for you. You've had a grudge against
it was my first game too, and I was like, all right.
Oh, no, reputation builder.
Yeah, grudge holder.
So are you a fan of the physicality? Like, are you one of those that would like to see, the rules changed and more hitting and physicality brought into women's hockey?
Yeah, I would. Obviously, I'm 5'7", so I'm on the taller spectrum. So, yeah, I would love to see it. I would love to throw a few hits out there too.
What advice would you give another student athlete who is thinking about or planning to enter the transfer portal, especially in an undergrad?
Just have fun with it. I think it's important going into it with an idea of what you want, an idea of what you didn't like at your previous school, of what you want. And just, have fun with it. Talk to as many schools as you can and find out what you can and then make the best decisions for you.
Connor said that he thought the transfer portal coming to UMD was a tougher process than being recruited initially to Penn State. You agree with that, or you think it was the other way around?
For me, I think it was the other way around because I had time to prove myself in the league. So I think more interest was in it for me when I entered the transfer portal than when I first got recruited.
All right. Olivia, that's all the time we got for today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
On the Bulldog Insider Podcast. Yeah, thanks for coming up. Thanks for squeezing us in your crazy smart person class schedule. Something Zach and I didn't know about smart person majors.
Still don't.
Bulldog Insider Podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe and rate us. For more Bulldogs hockey coverage, visit DuluthNewsTribune.com/Bulldog Insider. Subscribe to gain access to all of our coverage all season long. Thanks to our sponsor, Essentia Health, for their support of the Bulldog Insider Podcast. And thanks to all of you for listening. We'll catch you next week.